That should give us courage.
Exposure to other people's perspectives.
It's moving us in a good direction.
Was Charlie Kirk right? Was he correct about college?
Well, he called it a scam, and in that it fails to prepare people for the future as adults. Yeah, I think he was absolutely right.
And you've advocated for something different in your book, which I read and is excellent. The Preparation is the name of the book. What is it that you're advocating for or against?
Well, against college, but really the three options presented to young men formally are they can go to trade school, they can go to college, or they can join the military. And really, other than that, there's no real path that's laid out for them to feel like they can go on. So ours is a totally different approach where we try and essentially model what they would get in college with the academics layered in, but rooting it all in deep experience, like real engagement with life, where they learn real skills of economic value along the way, but they also figure out what I think was way more important, which is who they are, like what kind of man they want to be.
Is there a wrong answer to the question, what kind of man should you be?
I don't think that there's a wrong answer to that. I think the fundamental thing is you have to think deeply about the question.
Yeah, I think that's true. I don't think there could be a wrong answer. It has to be an individual answer for each person. And the problem with those three main paths is that it's grouping you in, making you one of the herd. So there is no individual answer. It's just a dispensing machine.
Well, I'll tell you a story, and you tell me if I think that question there is a wrong answer, and push back on me if you disagree. So, Reed and I were just in New York City, and we were at a restaurant, and these guys at the next table were getting drunk. I think there was four guys. There were like four guys, and there was a woman at the table, and basically the restaurant kicked them out. And I was actually going to go over there and say something to them. They were breaking glasses and stuff, but I was only going to go over there and say something to them when they started harassing the staff. Anyway, they walked outside, and I'm not sure what they were doing outside, but this deranged, crazed woman, probably belongs in Portland, began just beating them and beating the girlfriend, just punching them in the head. And they just stood there and let this deranged woman punch them in the head. And then they let the deranged woman punch their girlfriend in the head, and she was a bloody mess. And just, Reed and I are sitting there, and these people from the event that we were with, they were sitting there. Our friend Aubrey was sitting there. But I think there are wrong answers to the question, what kind of man should you be? A weak, pathetic man like those guys.
Well, but who would choose that? That's our point. I think that any individual who's giving this serious reflection is never going to model that. But of course, there is a wrong. I would say I agree with you. There's a wrong answer, but I don't think that if someone goes through the process that we ask them to go through, that they're going to come up with the wrong answer.
Yeah. Okay. So this is so important now. You guys lay out a pretty explicit process, and I think you call it prepping in the book.
Yeah.
What is the process? Tell us the process.
Well, the first thing, the most important thing, we want everyone to build their own personal code. And it might sound like a trivial thing. But the truth is that young people, when they basically have not created any individual identity yet. So as part of this process helps them get there. And it starts with this. It starts with simply setting a set of rules for themselves, not to do the things that make them feel small or that make them feel ashamed when they do them. And it could be, like if you asked me out for dinner on Friday, I could say I'm busy, which would be a white lie, or I could say I'm not really up to this Friday. How about another time? And then I could. So for me, I feel like I always feel a little bit small, even when I do a white lie. Personally, I'd rather just tell someone the truth. I'm not really up for it this Friday. But we ask the young person to think about all the things that they do, and they could range from white lies to watching porn or whatever. It could be across the spectrum, and to look at the things and think about what makes them feel small and decide not to do those things anymore. And it sounds trivial. But this is where I think actual self-esteem begins to be formed, where someone is drawing a line in the sand and saying, no one else has to follow these rules, but these rules apply to me and my conduct and how I'm going to handle myself. So it starts with those rules. That's the first thing.
Okay, there's so much to unpack there. I like in the book how you use the word virtue. Almost nobody uses the word.
Well, that's
victim
part
much.
2 of the personal code. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There's so much to say. I really want to get down to this thing that you wrote in the book about don't have a mentor, have a benefactor. But
patron. Yeah. Yeah.
A patron. I'm just queuing you up for that. What's wrong with watching porn?
Well, I think if somebody, I think it's really damaging to, especially a young mind. But I think it's damaging to one in doing it. I think it desensitizes you to real intimacy. I think it's a major problem. But I also think, for the purposes of the personal code, it's if someone doesn't feel any shame or any problem with it, then it wouldn't be one of the things that they detect as something they should stop doing. Like, we're not telling people what they should do. We're asking them to reflect on their own conduct and the things that make them feel small, and to not do those things.
How do you know what you should feel shame about?
Well, why don't you say that?
I don't know if it's something you have to choose or not. I think it's just something you feel. Like, I don't think you can choose to, I guess maybe you could say, this is shameful for me to do, but I think you have an inherent feeling that what you're doing is wrong while you're doing it. Like, would it be shameful for you to stand by and let those drunk guys be crazy and not go up to them and say, hey guys, this is kind of ridiculous?
Right. You have your rules. You had a line in the sand. As soon as he started harassing the staff, I was going to intervene.
That's right. That was my line in the sand. But I was not going to intervene short of their murder to the woman who was beating the shit out of all of them.
Yeah.
Why would I? I mean, that's exactly it.
Because you've thought these things through. And that's fundamentally what we're just trying to get people to do, because most people don't think any of these things through. So they don't think through what their conduct ought to be. And I think it starts with the things like, you would regret it if they started harassing the staff at the restaurant and you didn't intervene. You would have felt ashamed of yourself for failing to stand up for what you thought was right, or something along those lines, correct?
Yeah, it was funny. One of the things you write in the book that I loved was about making strong men. And I didn't know those guys were such pathetic pussies. But one of the things that was going through my head at the time is I was wondering if I could take on all 4 of those guys at once. Because if I went up to them and I said something, if they just started to throw down, so many people know MMA and jiu-jitsu now. And all someone really needs to know, Reed and I did jiu-jitsu last night, and you only need one person at a blue belt level to shoot in and take out someone's legs, while the other people kick and punch you in the head. So I was thinking, like, how would I take out all 4 of these guys? Anyway, that's another story. But tell me about the patron thing that you're thinking about.
Yeah. Okay. So, I should say the book is like 80% what exactly a young man should do instead of college, outlining in extensive detail, quarter by quarter, exactly what they should do.
Yeah.
The first part of the book, though, is more this philosophical piece, which I think fundamentally is actually more important, but it doesn't become as obvious to the person until they do a lot how important can I frame the book a little bit for you?
Anything you want.
So my mentor, who is the co-author on the book, is a guy named Doug Casey, and he's a very well known in financial circles. He's 79 years old, and he's been trying to get me to write this book with him for 12 years. And he first brought it up to me when I was visiting him in Aspen, and we were driving to lunch. And he said, "Hey, Matt, I want to write this book. I want to call it Renaissance Man." And I said, "Well, that's interesting. Well, what's it about?" And he said, "Well, the 3 most important verbs in every language are be, do, and have. And I want the book to be about that." And so I asked a few more questions. He didn't really have an answer for me. He said, "I don't really know. I haven't really thought about it that much, but this is my rough sketch." So he brought it up every couple of years, again and again. And he also told me, he's written a lot of books, that it's a lot of brain damage to write a book, and there's no money in books. So he's telling me it's not worth writing, but we should really write this book. So, but it wasn't until my son, was 17 years old, knocking on 18, and needed to have a plan. And I'm a college dropout. I'm an entrepreneur. And so he didn't grow up in a household where there was the propaganda or whatever, the idea that certainly you had to go to college to be successful. So I think that even left him maybe more rudderless than normal, because there wasn't any clear, yes, this is the right thing for me to do. And so I could see in him the anxiety and the stress, and, he wanted to be somebody, It wants to do something.
Yeah.
And so I got back with Doug and I said, let's flesh this idea out more. And for the last 2 years, he's been our guinea pig, our beta tester actually doing it.
So the do you say in the book is the most important part, right?
Well, yeah, we say that everybody's oriented around have.
Right.
So have is like, I want a nice car, I want a good looking mate, et cetera, et cetera. But have is a byproduct of doing. I mean, it's not, it's a result of, it's a consequence. It's not something you should shoot for directly. It's like the do is the operative. The do is what you have power over.
Right.
But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is to be a person that you are, to be a whole person, a person who can draw a line in the sand and say, this is unacceptable behavior. I will not tolerate this, for themselves and for others potentially. So anyway, we try and plant the seeds on be early in the book, but really most of the book is oriented to exactly what they ought to do instead.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't, epistemology, how you know what you think, isn't your epistemology isn't the most important thing to figure out where your line in the sand should be, if you even have one? I mean, those guys could have had guns. I could have asked them to stop. They could have blown my head off.
Yeah, I think that is the most important thing, but I think very few people have that at all. I don't think they thought it through. Instead, they're basically going through life and looking around at what everyone else is doing, and they are they then choose the path that makes the most sense.
Yeah, I just to reiterate, I really, really enjoyed your book. I have one major problem with it. I'm going to tell you the problem.
All right, let's hear it.
You wrote in that book the story of Thailand and Muay Thai. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's one of the cycles. So during one of the quarters, the anchor activity, like the main activity that they're doing during that cycle, is that they go to Thailand and study Muy Thai. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, just for the record, we also encourage people to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu during the normal times. I mean, throughout the whole thing, because we agree with you. I mean, Max has done kickboxing and BJJ along the way, but yeah.
Yeah. So last night, Reed and I were at a jiu-jitsu studio, and there are a bunch of guys training in Muay Thai. And for those people who do not know what Muay Thai is, it would be very difficult for you to design an activity unarmed that increased the likelihood that you would get brain damage more than the activity of Muay Thai. It is an utterly insane activity, and I would urge literally nobody to do it. Nobody who values their brain should do that activity. There are full knees and elbows to the head. Pull up a Muay Thai video, because I'm sure some people think, oh, this guy, he goes and stuff.
I think the thing is, though, a lot of the training camps, it's not like you're getting kicked in the head all the time. You want to be the person who can cause brain damage, if need be. But most of these camps, I mean, tons of foreigners go to them, and it's not like you go there to get beat up. And
yeah, it's just for
it's just another physical sport.
But unless you're engaged in the activity itself of taking these elbows, like if you, in order to show, like here, looks like kickboxing, but let's see, kickboxing is a crazy activity, but it is nowhere near as crazy. Reed, pull up some videos of like dudes,
knees and elbows too.
Yeah, knees and elbows in the head. Like I've seen guys. I did Muay Thai for a little while when I was younger, and I realized like this is truly the path to get Alzheimer's at like 30. But yeah. But anyway, so would you say the Muay Thai? Like, are you advocating that people take full headshots with knees and elbows?
No, of course not. Of course not. But you don't do that at the training camps. I mean, you don't even, you're lucky at the. You choose what you're participating in at the level you're participating in, meaning full contact, which is obviously that's not what they do at those camps early on, is that full on stuff. I mean, you're just doing 2 months of it. You're not training to be a full-time fighter. But I agree with you. Yeah. I mean, anything like boxing too, also very bad for your brain.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to be crystal clear. My criticism of that is not its effectiveness. It's an extraordinarily effective art if you don't value your brain. Okay, so let's talk about this you lay out a plan, a kind of curriculum for people. Let's talk about that a little bit.
You want to go?
Well, we came up with 16 cycles kind of to model the 4 years of college, because I think people have a better understanding of that. So it's easier for them to go through that program or go through the program. But it's 16 cycles, each cycle being 3 months long. And within each cycle, you have the main anchor course, which is the main activity you're dedicating your time to, and that could be sailing, it could be trying to get your private pilot's license, it could be Muy Thai in Thailand, it could be a heavy equipment operator course.
I like that. I love that. I love that. Yeah.
And then there's additional activities and academics and reflection and accountability within each cycle. And so what we're having people do within each cycle is dedicate at very least 40 hours per week towards the anchor course, activities, academics, all of it. So that by the time they come out of those 3 months, they will have at least a decent level of competency in the main activity as well as the additional activities and academics they do.
So let's say somebody goes through, they read the book, they're inspired, they follow the instructions. What kind of man will they become at the end if they are sincere about practicing what you lay in the book?
Well, if we're comparing it to college, the military, and the trades, you're going to blow all those people out of the water within 4 years.
How, why and how? How and why?
Well, if you are, most people don't give 40% effort into anything they do. So imagine at least 40 hours of your week, let's say five days a week, you're dedicating your time to actually making progress in something. So if somebody went through this, they would be a private pilot, they would know how to fly a plane, they would know how to sail a boat, they would be a competent fighter, they would be a competent healer as an EMT, if they did that as well, a great horseman, basically a cowboy as well, heavy equipment operator, entrepreneur, investor,
A welder.
I mean, the list goes on and on. And how many people do a fraction of that with their lives? So I think it's
the kind of thing that I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, it's very difficult to outsource that. And I'm thinking back of the Renaissance man kind of thing. It would harken back to a man of yore, like an actual man, a man of, I don't want to say a rugged individualist, because you don't advocate for individualism, but a kind of more rugged human.
Totally. And somebody who understands how the actual world works and how they can interact with that world successfully, because they've had lots of experiences engaging with the real world, with physical things, not just ideas. So there's the academic part is there, of course. We like the academic part, but the engagement with the real world to see how the abstract ideas actually work, engaging to do stuff that's productive.
Yeah, it'd be super interesting to me if you kind of tested this somehow. If
Well,
you had
he's
a
been our
test
professor for 2 years.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like, if once people start doing this, the book is out. If you kind of get, I don't know what it'd be, like self-reports, and then it would be easy to get a control group. So how's that worked out for you for the last 2 years? It's Maxim, right?
Yes, correct.
How's that worked out?
Well, I've worked on wildfires, became an EMT. I've sailed around the Falkland Islands and through the Strait of Magellan for a competent crew sailing course. I've been apprenticed to an Uruguayan gaucho, learning how to fix and build fences, drive tractors, treat and raise cattle, shoe horses. And that's just to name a few things over the last few years. I forget, I mean, in the preface, there's 3 paragraphs dedicated to some of the things I've done. I forget basically 70% of everything. So it's worked out pretty great, I think.
And so, again, it's a counterfactual, so you never really know if you took another path, how that would be. But when you meet people, what is their response when you tell them, hey, I've done all this stuff, I'm on this plan? What is their response?
I usually don't tell people, honestly. Unless they know about it, I just I have nothing to say. I don't go out of my way to tell them anything.
Well, they'll probably know about it after this interview. So how many, you need funding for this, don't you? I mean, you can't just sail around the Falklands and go to, Patagonia or what have you.
Right.
So if someone wants to follow the plan, where do they get funding to be an EMT? Like, how are they going to afford this?
Well,
Go ahead.
Like most parents do, he set up an account where you put money in. And so when I turned 18, I had the equivalent of a year's worth of tuition at a prestigious university to use at my disposal. But I also worked immediately. That was one of the first things I did. I started working at Office Depot. I worked as a pizza delivery driver. And to go through EMT school was very cheap. It was $1,500. Super cheap.
Wow,
And
interesting. That's interesting.
saved $5,000 in 3 months, so I had no problem doing that. But then doing one thing led to random opportunities, like working on wildfires. That was a completely random, out of the blue opportunity, and I was able to make $600 a day working on wildfires. And then later on, I got another random opportunity to work on a geophysics crew and make $250 a day. So the way we tell people to go through this program is to include working very often. In fact, one of the cycles is a work cycle where all you do during that 3-month time period is work. And it's supposed to be a virtuous cycle of making more money to get more skills, go through more courses, which can allow you more opportunities to make even more money over time.
We have a whole chapter devoted to how to finance the program, and people are in different situations. Sometimes we'll have a parent who would pay for them to go to college and say, well, hey, finance me in this instead. Or people who are like me and totally broke at that age. I joined the Army. That's my plan to pay for college was the Army. So it's basically designed to be something you can self-fund.
Okay. Where do you see yourself? Well, let me ask you a question. I think it was Dave Ellis has this series of interesting questions. Instead of saying like where you're going to be in 5 years or 10 years, 15 years, he starts at the back end. When you're 59, my age, where do you see yourself?
I don't know. I haven't
Always a
thought
good
about it.
answer.
I
Always a good
prefer
answer.
not to answer that, actually. I think I will undershoot it, or I think my answer will be different over time. I don't know.
Well, I don't mean to get overly personal with you, but like when you date somebody, now that you're on this path, if you were going to seriously date someone, would it be difficult for you if she were on a different kind of path, like a path, a road more traveled with fewer obstacles?
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. Especially because you're constantly in different places doing different things. So if somebody were on the normal path, you wouldn't see them. You just wouldn't see them ever.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking to myself, like somebody has this set of experiences. Dating a quote unquote normie might be a little bit coming down. I'm just kind of thinking to myself, cool. And so, have you made friends along the way at these places? Like, do you still keep in contact with some of the people?
Yeah, but most of the people I would consider friends are much older than me, which I think is good.
Oh, that's interesting.
One friend who I met on the sailing trip was 18. Is 18, but everybody else who I would consider a friend are above 35. Actually,
yeah. What's the most difficult part of being on this rather rigorous and unusual program?
I would say the most difficult part, especially in the beginning, is the fact that you have no one around you. I've always been thankful to have my dad, because he's been the one person to actually root for me continuously. But besides that, nobody's gonna look at you and go, "Oh, you're succeeding." That's one of the most difficult things, especially in the beginning. I didn't know it until a couple months ago, but my dad got calls from for my family asking if I was all right.
My brother, my sister, his mother.
Oh, wow.
Are
Interesting.
they all right? Is he okay? I'm like, he is fine. And now it's self-evident to all of them. But at the very beginning, they're like, what is he doing? And I'm like, just trust me.
The
And they were worried about him.
preparation.
They're like, he's doing things that are dangerous or doing
Yeah.
things that I don't know that adults would do. I'm like, well,
And you look like you're in good shape, Maxim. You do too. But what are you doing for workouts?
Oh, I'm pretty basic. I just do a push-pull legs split.
Because that's part of the book too.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think while you're doing a lot of this stuff, you're going to be physically active anyway, but you should be lifting weights or you should be training some sort of martial art. I think I've done a couple months of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that's fantastic for conditioning. So
You guys know I'm a fan. They know I'm a fan, Reed. Okay, so there wasn't too much in the book. It's a little bit. There wasn't as much as I thought it'd be about diet. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to choose what you can put in a book or not put in a book.
Yeah,
and
true.
the fact is, if you get people engaged enough and doing enough in the real world, like they become aware of the effect of the diet and all of that on them. The most of the time, people are
Sugars.
just, yeah. I mean, I think that becomes pretty obvious to people who are in tune with their performance level, right? And if a young man is out there in the world, then they're actually engaging
Yeah.
aggressively, like they're gonna know, like I don't feel so good when I do this. And it's
Yeah.
also way less important for an 18-year-old than it is for people like us in our 50s.
Yeah, it's crucial. The older you get, the more fastidious you have to be. But okay, so is there a way at the end of the time, at the 4 years, you can say I've succeeded, or I feel like, is there a kind of grade you can give yourself, or your dad gives you? Like, how do you figure out at the or is it like a yearly thing, or
well,
like what does success or failure look like?
I think that's self-determined. I think that's one of the problems with all these main normal paths we've given people is that they have to have gratification from other people to feel as though they've succeeded. If you don't have that piece of paper, then it's like, oh, you clearly failed. Whereas and we tell people to constantly log their successes,
Yeah.
even minor ones.
Yeah.
But it's their choice. Like, what do they think is success? But I think if you go through all this and you don't feel successful, I'd be very surprised.
Well, you do get certifications along the way. Obviously, becoming an EMT, that's a clear. Okay, you've met the qualifications and standards for that. You're confident. You're a competent crewman now, on could work on a sailboat on ocean voyages. I mean, like and the heavy equipment operator. I mean, you get the skill, but there's also some certification that goes along with it that makes you that's recognized outside of your own success.
Yeah, I really wish so many people would read this book and not go to college. Like, I think our world would be far better off if people read this book. Reed's nodding his head. Follow the plan. You can't see Reed, but he is nodding his head. Followed the plan, did the best they could, and I think it's important to track your journey as well and think about the successes, both the successes and failures, and be honest with yourself. And I like the intellectual component of this as well. Physical, intellectual, the virtue component. Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have written a fantastic book. What else do you want to tell me that I haven't covered or talked about yet?
Well, we talked about the personal code. That's super important. There are 3 parts to it, though. So I talked about the rules for yourself is number 1.
Yeah.
The second thing is we do expose them to all the ancient virtues.
Right. I love that.
And we ask them to which ones call to you. Like, where there's a bunch of them here. Whatever ones call to you, you should put them part of your personal code to aspire to. Because unlike the rules, which is binary, I did something that I wish I hadn't done. Or the virtues are a constant aspiration. It's constant pursuit. I mean, you could always be more courageous. And of course, I know there's a balance in there where you could take things too far. The golden mean and all. But we expose them to them and give them something to aspire to. And the last component is they start actually logging their competencies, what they actually can do in the world. And those things stack up really fast. If you see his list, it's surprising. I mean, I wish there's a lot of things he's done that I honestly can't do. You know,
Yeah.
I'm 30 years older, but I just haven't done it. I can't do it.
Yeah. The older you get, the more it seems like your options narrow like a funnel, and they narrow quite quickly, particularly when it deals with things in the physical domain. Okay. Where can people find your book?
On Amazon. It's self-published, so it's on Amazon.com. You can also go to thepreparation.com. We've got a Substack there set up. And Maxim for the last 2 years has been, and we encourage everyone to do this when they're actually going through the program. You started off just as a personal accountability thing. Here's what I did this week. And now it's, turned into something much bigger than that, where he actually became a competent writer, frankly, over this time period in publishing it. And that's at maximsmith.com. So some subject.
Yeah, I love that. Is there two more questions? Can you hear that noise in the background? I hear a noise in the background. Can you ask the guy to kill it? 2 more questions. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
You did start to ask me a question about the patron thing, and I didn't answer.
Oh, yeah, because I found that to be super interesting. Go ahead.
Okay, so there's 2 parts. We call forget mentors. We say find a patron. And mostly I'm trying to accomplish 2 things with that chapter. Number 1, I'm trying to get people to understand that their generational shell they need to break out of, because their peers are not the best people that they can learn from. I mean, odds are they're certainly as dumb as you are, your peers are. And so if you can break out of that, you can get into access to wisdom and understanding, frankly, that you're not going to get in your peer group. Also, so I'm trying to break that, because I don't know, you probably noticed this, that young people are much more comfortable only interacting with their generation in a way that's, I think, relatively new, where they're just not comfortable interacting with people that are older in the same way. So I think trying to break that, first of all, with it. And the second thing is I'm trying to explain that the way that people imagine mentor relationships, where it's really a one-way street, where Gandalf shows up and he's got like all the answers for you. Like, that's not how the real world works. And in fact, the way these relationships work over time is that it's a two-way street, where you have to provide, like any relationship, you have to provide value to the mentor, and the mentor gets value from you. You probably have people coming up to you all the time, I imagine, Peter, and saying, "I love what you're doing. Yeah, how can I help?" And you're like, "I don't even know you. How could I know how you could help?" That's a burden to come to you like that. Instead, somebody who's studied your work, respects what you do, and says, "I've been watching, and I think I can help you with this."
Yeah,
like, much more valuable to you than somebody.
Big difference.
Yeah. And
Correct.
so that the responsibilities on the part of the young person, basically be worthy of mentorship, be worthy of it by seeking ways to add value to the mentor's life, help them in their mission. And then what you find is they open doors for you. Like, they introduce you to other people. I mean, the guy, Doug, again, my mentor for a long time, that's what I called it, but he's introduced me to people I wouldn't have known, put me in rooms I would never otherwise have been in. But it's a mutually beneficial thing. Ultimately, he got the book that he wanted out of me. Just took a lot longer than maybe he expected. So that's the way the relationships actually work. And we use this Roman model of patron-client as an example, which was a binding force within civic society in ancient Rome.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, great. I really want to thank you guys for coming and talking. I truly, genuinely hope that you guys sell millions of copies, and that people wake up to the crisis in education and start following this plan. I'm a founding faculty member, University of Austin. They're doing something extraordinary over there. We're all trying to fight the indoctrination and the craziness that's taken over. You also mentioned in the book, homeschooling, something 20 years ago, or no, 15 years ago, I would have been vehemently opposed to, but now I'm a huge fan of, given all of the derangement that's happened. But I truly wish you guys nothing but success. I loved your book, and I hope a million people, more than just read it, follow it. So thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All right, right on. We'll see you guys. Keep your tab open. Thanks, Reed.